afternoon. I'm Anthony Pollock of Anthony Pollock and Associates. Um, so, where are you now? Um, for many businesses, they aren't necessarily where they'd like to be. So, if you would like to, are you happy where you are now? Would you like to be somewhere else? Are the things that you want? So, just think through if you are where you are now. Maybe you're worried about which way to go. Lots of change in the market, lots of choices, lots of decisions, lots of pressures, lots of challenges. Perhaps you're worried about cash flow. I think a lot of businesses I speak to, COVID has depleted cash reserves, and they're much more worried about cash flow now, perhaps, than they were before, and seeking to rebuild cash balances. And we've had a lot of inflation, and that has also affected cash flow. Perhaps you're worried about profit. A lot of businesses are finding that profits are harder to come by, maybe even declining, and they need to turn it around. Potentially, you might be worried about rising costs. We've had 30% or so, maybe a bit more, 35% inflation in the last few years, and that has impacted both cost of sales and overheads. So are you facing rising costs? So where do you want to be? Assuming you aren't there where you want to be now, you want to be somewhere else. A picture here of a bit of a desert and a door into a very nice seaside abode. Do you want to be somewhere else? And if so, what does that look like? Imagine a clearer road ahead. It's easier to see where success might be. Visualize feelings of positive cash flow. Certainly, when I have positive cash flow, I do jump for joy. Brings a tremendous feeling. Picture new products or services that you know you need to bring on board. You need to face changes in the market. Imagine what that would be. Imagine customers queuing up to buy your product. I assume they aren't doing that at the moment, but what would that look like? How would that feel? Envisage that you've got costs under control. They're not going up. Maybe in some cases they're going down. Imagine increasing profits. So, how are you going to get from where you are now to where you want to be? And I believe that our financial intelligence system is part and parcel of that. So, why is the financial intelligence system so important? Often, people in business suffer from stress and pressure, and sometimes it's difficult to see the wood for the trees. Success usually requires a plan, and the plan needs to coordinate all of these various areas. That's complicated, but it's also important to understand how they're performing on a month by month basis. We live in uncertain geopolitical times. More wars going on, more rumors of wars, more threats of wars, shutting of the Suez Canal because of issues in the Red Sea. Challenges. How does that affect you? Maybe not, maybe quite a bit. Technological change is relentless. We're facing a potential revolution with AI. We've got Web3, I think, is coming over the horizon. New entries into the market, people snapping at your ankles, trying to take part of your market. How do you deal with the technological change? We need to be able to navigate and course correct. So we have a plan that helps us to navigate, but it also helps us to course correct when things don't go according to plan. So why is now the right time? Well, the world is changing. Lots of change going on in the world. Business is more complex and challenging than ever before. And we have choices, which way to go, decisions, decisions, decisions. We believe that our system helps with these. New opportunities abound. What's the next big thing? I believe the time is now. We can help you get where you want to go. What's the consequences of a lack of financial intelligence? I often say you end up in the ditch, and you can see here a picture of a lorry that's gone into the ditch. The other challenge is that we get left behind. We become obsolete because we haven't understood the information of what's going on in the market. example of the issues of planning and direction is Alice and the Cheshire Cat. So Alice asks the Cheshire Cat, which way should I go from here? And the Cheshire Cat replies, it depends a good deal on where you want to get to. And Alice, perhaps like too many businessmen, doesn't know, perhaps doesn't care where. So tied up with the today stuff of sales and things. And the Cheshire Cat says, well, it doesn't matter which way you go then. Well, we believe it does matter. And the reason it matters is that these statistics on business survival are rather sobering. Less than 50%, nearly 60% of businesses don't survive 5 years. And I believe a lack of financial intelligence and understanding what's going on helps to cause them. It's not total, but it helps. And of the 42.5% who survive, 90% aren't saleable for one reason or another. And our system connected to exit planning helps to deal with some of these. Of the remainder, 80% won't sell for some reason, leaving only 5%, or 1 in 2,222, that actually will sell. What are your plans? Do you want to have a business that you can sell, that you can extract the equity value that you have spent many years building? If so, our system will help. Do you know where you're going? And you must develop a strategy, clear strategy. The other piece that many businesses face is that the financial information that they have is historic, which leads them to effectively be driving looking backwards. And none of us want to drive our cars any distance looking through the rearview mirror. Instead, we want to look down the road we're going, and that's equivalent of having a plan. Some businesses only need very small changes in the key drivers of value in order to solve the problems they have currently. You may be one of those, you may need a little bit more. But business success needs an optimum strategy. It starts with ensuring that you have firm foundations. I get quite surprised how many companies the bookkeeping system doesn't really generate financial information properly. I was talking with a client back in the spring, and they had grants that were posted to sales. That the information from the system, financial information, was just completely misleading. I had another client who only billed once a quarter, and therefore his financial information on a monthly basis was it didn't make sense. So we offer a deep dive and a spring clean to make sure that your financial information is fit for purpose. We also seek to measure what matters. Traditionally, we measure lag indicators and outputs and report after things have happened. But we look to measure lead indicators that give access to the inputs and means that we measure activities that are necessary to achieve your goals. We have identified some key drivers of profit and sales. They're not complex. How many clients do you acquire? How many clients that you've acquired do you retain? What is the margin on the business you do with each client or each product? How often do people buy from you? What is your transaction or sales value for each transaction? And finally, how are your overheads? All of these components create your net profit. And if we add cash flow, we have effectively 6 business growth drivers and cash flow making 7. And here's an example of how these fit together. We have revenue in this company, this example of $1 million. It's gone down a little bit. We have cost of sales and a gross margin that's gone up a little bit. And we have overheads, which have gone down a little bit, and therefore the profit has gone up. Very solid, straightforward business. So let's see what success might look like. If we were able to and chose to increase revenue by 50%, we would increase revenue and profit. What does that mean? We think it's good news, but is it? What's the cash flow implication? When we look at cash drivers, we buy things, we own them, and then we sell them. And the issue around time, we have the issue that the time we own stuff, whether it's work in progress or staff time or our own time, which we work on before we sell it. And that means that we have a considerable lockup in our business. So if we're looking at a potential around cash, we go back to our example and we have a profit, but we have a bank overdraft of 53,000. So what does that mean based on? We're looking at cash flow drivers. We can see here that if we increase turnover by 50%, but what's the cash flow implication? Well, in this example, we have a debtor days of 72 and creditor days of 27. And if we track those forward, what happens to the bank balance? Well, we can see that we have debtors of 296 and creditors of 103. And effectively, we've invested 98,000 into debtors, which is work we've done, sales we've done, but cash we haven't collected. And that means that the bank overdraft has actually gone up by 24,000. Or if we can't increase the bank overdraft, we've got to find some money from somewhere else. So effectively, increasing the turnover by 50% has actually made our cash flow worse. So what can we do? If we look at the stock and work in progress piece, we can look at decreasing the time that is taken to get to sales. And if we look at the example we had a little earlier, and we then have a target of reducing debtor days, perhaps we get somebody to actually go and chase clients. Perhaps we change our terms of business and we get more money up front. But if we reduce the debtor days from 72 to 40, we would actually find that we have a net movement of 106,000 in our favor, which means that we go from a 53,000 bank overdraft to 54,000 in the bank. Happy days. And if we just change the debtor days on the current year and went from 72 to 40, we would also find that our bank overdraft had been eliminated and was actually cash in hand. And if we wanted to pay a dividend, we're now in a position to do so. We're also in a position to invest in the business and do things that perhaps we couldn't afford to do previously. So going back to the 7 drivers, we have cash flow, margin, quick wins, acquisition, retention, transaction value, and frequency. And when we grow the business, we need to realize the equity value of the business. So in order to do that, you need to be sure that the sale value of the business is enough to pay your bills for the rest of your life, unless you tend to go and start again or do something else. But let's assume for this purpose that you're in your 60s and you don't want to work again. And so we have to look at the number that we need to live for the rest of our lives. And we need to make sure that the business can generate that. So what we do is we help with a 5-year profit and loss and cash flow. And so we build a sales side, sales overhead assumptions, we create a profit and loss, we understand our cash flow, we establish a projected balance sheet, and this gives us a sense of direction. And that generates a 5-year profit forecast in summary. But that's not on its own. This exit planning only just begins. Got the direction, we need to work out how we do each month and are we on the right track. And so we monitor the plan to actuality and to reality, and we have reports in connection with that. We have to keep our eye on the road. So we've got sales analysis to see how the sales are doing, and we can do cash analysis to see how the cash is doing. But how do you value your business? Well, there are actually, just on the accounts, about 7 different ways of valuing your business. And we can assess that valuation and report on it. There are other valuations around trade sales, where maybe you have a business that's really attractive to somebody else and they'll pay your premium in connection, but that's separate to this. So we have the different types of valuation and we have a target. And in this case, you can see that different valuation methods show different values depending on their methodology. And some of them, in this case, the target's 400,000, actually show that you reach that valuation much earlier, some later. But in this case, we've got a weighted average, which actually means we don't achieve it until year 6. So again, need to keep an eye on the price. So are you where you want to be? That's the key question. Do you want success? Do you need help? And how are you going to get there? And I believe that our financial intelligence system will help you get there. And to help you achieve that, we have a course that we're starting in mid-October. It's a weekly course where we go through the 12 business growth and exit readiness steps. And as you can see here, we have how to grow your business, business growth drivers, quick win strategies, improving cash flow, margin control, customer attrition, gap analysis and cross-selling, transactions and value, customer acquisition, know your number from an exit perspective, achieve exit readiness, and performance versus plan. And I have an offer today, which is I will provide access to this course for the 12 weeks, undertake a deep dive in your bookkeeping system. I will provide you with a monthly overview report for the 3 months of the course and a performance review report, as well as a monthly marketing report. And an hour of my time each month. Normally, I would charge 8,750, but the offer today is for 9,1995, and we will help you get where you want to be. So thank you for your time. My contact details are these, and I'll open up for any questions.